Okay, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesch. We're here with Kirlyn Joseph, the Director of Family Court Services with the Queen's Defenders. How are you doing today, Kirlyn?
Well, how are you?
You're going to be talking about a great program. I find this extremely interesting, the Youth Court. Tell the viewers a little bit about it, if you could.
Okay, so our Youth Justice Court program was born out of the intense interest that we saw. A lot of the attorneys in our office volunteered at local schools and saw that the kids were very, very interested in anything law related. And then while at the schools, we noticed that there were, kids were getting suspended for what appeared to us to be like minor offenses. They took out their cell phone. And recognizing how that then disrupts their education, increases the likelihood of truancy, we came up with the idea of doing the youth court program in the high schools. Now, before we started it in the high schools, we did it in the community in partnership with the Queen's Library. The goal of the program is obviously to educate the young people about the various legal systems that are at play, the criminal legal system, juvenile legal system, civil as well. But also it's to give the young people an opportunity to express their thoughts and their opinions, to be able to take a position and then support it with facts, not to just accept anything that you hear, but to do your own investigation.
So let me ask you a question. So I know you gave an example of somebody who took their cell phone out, let's say in class. What are some other examples that would be ripe for a youth justice court?
Sure. Like in the community, we got cases referred to us by the local precinct of juvenile reports. Those are reports where a child is arrested, but it's not referred to court, family court or criminal court. And so some of those types of cases were assault, like fights,
Right.
Stealing, petty larceny, either stealing from a friend or family member or stealing from a store, criminal mischief, like doing graffiti on someone's property. Those were the typical trespassing. Those were the kinds of cases we got in the community.
So once that happens, does the mother have to consent to
Yes.
juvenile youth court? How does it work?
Yes. Once we would get a case, we would reach out to the parent, explain the program to the parent, because obviously if you can get the parent on board, then you're likely to get the child on board. Yes. So we would absolutely reach out to the parents, get their consent to have their child participate. Then the challenge is now convincing the child to follow through on it. But once that occurred, then yes, the young person would come to you.
Now, where were the original venues? They were in Far Rockaway, from what I understand. Or
Yes.
where exactly in Queens did you first start this out?
The very first one was in the Far Rockaway Library for Teens. That's where we started the first program. And that's where we get the cases referred from the 101st precinct.
Now, this is almost like a true trial setting, really. I mean, you have a judge, a jury,
Yes.
prosecutor,
Yes.
defense.
Yes.
Where do you find everybody to participate? Listen, as a attorney myself, I have a hard time getting everybody together for a trial. How do you manage to do this?
So the great thing is being in the teen library, there are other teens there. And so that helped with our recruitment. So we would get our young people by, just going to community events and enrolling them. Then we would train them to play all the roles. We had myself and other attorneys train the young people. And then they would be the one to interview the young person when they came. So they're not being interviewed by an adult. They're being interviewed by their youth attorney. And we had it set up that it was a 3-week process. The first week, we got the case. The second week, we discussed the different arguments that could be made. The third week, we had the trial. And so not only did we use the young people in our program, but we also partnered with the 101st precinct. They have a program where they have young people that volunteer with them. So we would invite them to come and be the impartial jurors, because we had some instances where the participants in our program knew the child that had the case. So we would invite them to come and be the impartial jurors. So, it was a group effort, but the library would set aside, it would actually close when we did a hearing so that the child could have absolute confidentiality. And we would do the hearing, and literally from start to finish, we always had an adult be the judge, but the young people played every other role.
When there's a decision that's made, it's made by the jury, am I correct?
The jury, yes, would make the recommendation, but the judge would sign off on it for the most part.
What are some examples of some recommendations that the jury makes?
Sure. Like, for example, we had a young man who graffitied on his neighbor's sidewalk. They suggested that he write a letter of apology and that he do a piece of art that could hang in the library. We've had some serious cases where, for example, a child needed mental health services. So the recommendation of the youth jury was that they be referred to mental health and show that they've attended a certain amount of sessions. That's on the more serious side. Like, for example, with the petty larcenies, obviously a letter of apology, mentorship meeting with we had a gentleman by the name of Mr. Brandon. So he would sit and do one-on-one sessions with the young people, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times, where they would come and meet with him and go over what their goals were, and any support that they needed, he would provide it. So very creative solutions. And in the high school, they were very creative in their solutions. For example, with the cell phone issue, the kids came up with getting a box that they would have in the classroom. When they walked into the classroom, they would put their phones in the box. When the class was over, then they take their phones out. Like, that would be one of the sanctions that they created.
What if you have a repeat offender, someone who's done it a few times, which I'm sure that happens, right?
Yes, we did have repeat offenders. And so then the level of the sanctions would increase, but the young people would do this because, like, sometimes, like, they literally mimic what we did in court. So, like, if someone was a first offender, sometimes they wouldn't even have to have a full hearing. They would say, okay, you're a good kid, you're coming to school, your grades are good. All right, just stay out of trouble for 1 month and this is over. But then if that young person came back, then they would actually have to have a full hearing, and the jury would have to decide then on a different sanction.
Where are the youth justice courts now? Where are they? Like,
Okay, so we have them in, right now, I think 5 to 6 libraries, and we're in about 3 or 4 high schools.
And are you trying to continually expand into different boroughs? And
okay, so as Queens Defenders, we're a public defender's office. And so our contract with the city is to work in the county of Queens. So any expansion that we do would be in Queens. So we are in conversation with the library to expand the program this coming fall to maybe 1 or 2 more libraries.
What tips would you give, we don't have too much time, to some parent who's watching right now and thinks that their child should be adjudicated by a jury of their peers? What would you say?
Okay, so if, for example, if you go to the Queens Defenders website and you have a child who's interested in youth court or finding out about it, they can ask for that information on our website. Also, with the libraries, what they do is they create like an enrollment form. So if you go to the Queens Library and you look at Youth Justice Court, then you can actually fill out a form so that your child will be contacted by one of our staff members to see if they want to participate. Or, it would be great, like, if a parent came across a situation where they wanted their kid to actually go to court, maybe for something that happened, that would be fantastic. But they could do it that same way.
Kirlyn, thank you very much. Kirlyn Joseph, Amongst Defenders, is a great program. I'm very interested in this. I wish my trials went as smoothly as these trials may go. All right, stay with us. Today's verdict has so much more right after this.